Have you ever suffered from imposter syndrome? Maybe you find yourself doubting in your abilities or wondering, who am I to be doing this? Am I the person that people should be listening to? Well, if you have, you're definitely not alone. And in this conversation with copywriter Laura Bean and brand strategist and designer Laura Robinson, we share some of our stories about our own experiences with imposter syndrome, as well as some tips on how you can start to trust in your abilities and to move past that belief that you're not good enough and that you're not the person that people should be listening to, because you definitely are. So stay tuned for some top tips, and I'd love to know what you think.
Started this whole conversation because a lot of people in our industry are being copied at the moment. And after a really good discussion, we thought that maybe this is a lot to do with mindset issues from the person. So they're not meaning to copy, but they are actually got a few issues with maybe imposter syndrome, not knowing who to talk to, feeling a bit out of depth. So they feel that the best thing is to look exactly like everyone else in their industry. So imposter syndrome, it's a big topic for all of us. I am guilty of it quite a lot. How do you guys feel about it?
Well, I think just like you say, Laura, I think every person is guilty, even those people that are coming across like they know everything and they're the best in the business. I'm sure everyone behind the scenes has imposter syndrome and is panicking over something. Even when you've done it a million times before, there's still that fear that creeps in.
And what do you do to stop it? How do you cope with it at the moment? What tips have you got that we all use? Because it's happened to me big time this week. Walked into a meeting, lovely client, really nice. The rest of the sales and marketing team were sitting there and no problem. But these little gremlins start playing in the back of their head going, who am I to be telling them how to be dealing with their business and how to brand their business and how they should be talking to their customers? And yeah, it all started setting in halfway through the meeting, which was not the best timing. So please tell me I'm not the only one that does this.
Yeah, I think it's something that probably all of us have experienced at some point. I mean, I'm a mindset coach and I help other people with this, but it doesn't mean that I don't get imposter syndrome myself. So I think it's a lot down to our beliefs, isn't it? Like if you're fundamentally in a similar situation to what you're just saying, Laura, there's some kind of belief there that maybe these people know so much more than you, or that they're such an important client or something. We put something in there where we go, oh, well, I'm not therefore good enough, or I don't know enough, or something that makes us then think, who am I to do this? And so it's first of all, it's kind of going, well, what is that? Why is it, what am I thinking? Why am I feeling like this right now? And then being able to then shift that. So for me, one thing that I always think is everybody's equal in my mind. And that's something I really believe, everyone is valuable, whether you are a homeless person on the street or you're a CEO or the president, you're a human. And you're not a better person. Or like celebrities, I've never got that like celebrity worship thing, because I just think, well, they can be the most amazing singer or actor or whatever, but they're still just another person. That's how I see it. So I kind of go, if I walk into that room and I think, oh my God, this person's so important, or they're so good at this, who am I? I kind of go, they're just a person. I'm a person and I'm here for a reason. Like, you're in that room for a reason. So what led you to get there? Sometimes it's just reminding ourselves that actually we got here for a reason. So therefore we can either use that reason and be ourselves and just allow that to occur, or we can let that kind of fear overpower us. But yeah,
that's exactly what I started thinking in my head was, you know what, they've hired me for a reason, and I'm here, and they know about me and they've researched me, and out of all the people they could have picked, they picked me for a reason. And so I took a deep breath, and the CEO actually turned and said, well, we've hired you because you're the expert. And and you think, okay.
Suddenly put the fear in you because they've used that term as well. And when you don't consider yourself the expert, and I think a lot of that is not realizing that what other people don't know. Like, this is why you're an expert in design or mindset, because you know stuff that the rest of us don't. And it's the same with the copywriting. I take it for granted sometimes, and I think, well, that's simple. And actually they don't know that. So it's having confidence in your own knowledge and remembering that not everybody knows what you know, which is why you're the expert in it.
I suppose because you're in your business day to day and it's terminology and things, you kind of forget. I often get called on, what do you mean by that, when I use like a term that I think everybody knows, but actually it's an industry term and a lot of my clients don't know. And it's that being a couple of steps ahead of that person. So you still have enough knowledge to help them, but you don't necessarily need to be the expert in that industry. But yeah, I could do with a bit of tips on how to control it so I don't get to that panic stage. I did just sit a bit quiet at one stage in the meeting, just thinking, okay, just breathe.
Yeah, I feel like there's two different kind of parts to that almost, because there's like the work that you do before you get to the meeting to kind of get yourself either to like deal with some of the fears around it that are leading to that feeling of imposter syndrome, but also to kind of make sure you're in a really good state. So things like the breathing, like having a few really deep breaths before you walk into the room can be really powerful. Or even sometimes, you feel like you're running late, or you don't want to be, don't want to be late for something, but actually just taking that extra minute to kind of just clear the mind and walk in with the confidence rather than walking in and feeling kind of confronted by it can be really powerful. And then it's like, yeah, when you're in that moment, if you start to feel it creeping on, it's like, what do you do? And I think breathing is always so powerful because it helps us to get out of our head and more into our body again. It helps us to actually pause and have space to think rather than feel like we're rushing, and physically calm the body. So that's a really, really useful thing to do. And I think also it's reminding yourself that, well, there's something we talk about a lot in coaching and NLP, of a phrase we use, which is no such thing as failure, only feedback. And I love that, because if I'm in those situations, so I had a yoga class that I went to recently, and it was like build a beginner's class and slow. And it wasn't beginners or slow at all. It was really advanced. And I've done yoga before, but not for a while. Got a bit of a injury and limitation at the moment. And I had massive imposter syndrome. It's like, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Can't do anything. And I just kept reminding myself, it's okay. Got nothing to prove. No such thing as failure. Only feedback. The feedback I got from that class was, one, it wasn't the class for me, and two, it's probably a bit soon to go back to yoga. But actually, it didn't matter. And I think we're very often attached to the outcome. So we're worried about, if I'm in this meeting, what if it goes wrong? What if I say something stupid? I need to sign this client, or whatever it is. And actually, most of the times, even if it doesn't go how we want it to go, it's going to be fine. And often something else will come out of it that maybe we hadn't planned, but might be even better. So it's like just going in with the intention of what you want to try and create and what you want to try and share, without putting so much pressure on it. Because I think often we kind of pile so much pressure into ourselves to be perfect at things, and we're human, we're not perfect.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of, I tried climbing. So I went to a climbing lesson. I was going to these climbing walls, and I wasn't particularly, I could just about get up the top, but I couldn't do that, go up this one color and go up this, or go over the overhangs, and I put this pressure on myself because I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to go, it's really embarrassing, I'm not very good. And it wasn't until someone said to me, like, why do you have to be good at it? Like, why are you putting so much pressure to be good at it right away, when even if you're never good at it, like, as long as you're enjoying it, and it's like you said, it's this instant pressure to be this perfectionist and be good at everything, and this worry about what everyone's thinking of you, and they're looking at me. And I suppose when we're in work and we're quoting and they're looking at us as the experts, that professionalism, that perfectionism creeps back in, because we're then worrying again, aren't we? We're there going, oh God, they're looking at me, what are they thinking of me? Or am I saying the wrong thing? Or and it's just this mindset I think we carry through everything in our lives, don't we? Like in our hobbies, in our home life, in our work life. And it can be a real barrier if you can't get past it.
There's that every time, if you improve by 1% every day in 100 days, you'll be 100% better, which is something I say to my kids all the time, but never actually say to myself. But do you find that perfectionism and imposter syndrome kind of go hand in hand? Because it's that stumbling block. You want it to be perfect because you don't want to be seen as kind of a failure or a fraud. I find that kind of goes really hand in hand for me. Sometimes I don't go and move forward in business because I want it to be perfect so much. I don't want to be seen as like it's that fear of failure, and also I have a fear of success. I don't want to be too big and too much because I don't think I'll handle it. So yeah, it's kind of got a double-edged sword going on.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely the same with you there, Laura. I mean, just starting, as you know, well, potentially some people watching this will be on my YouTube channel, and getting started with that, I spent 2 years getting ready to be on video, and it's been a big barrier for me and pushing past that. And in the end, it was like, just start. And I think that's the same with a lot of people's social media chat, you know, well, posting on LinkedIn. I hear a lot of people with barriers on that. It's like, just start. It doesn't have to be perfect. But I mean, Danie's probably got some tips on how we get past that, because I know it's not always that simple to just say, just start.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is, right? Sometimes we overcomplicate things, and it is the case of just start and just take that first step. Like, I'm very guilty of wanting to see all the steps laid out before I do something. And actually, most of the time, you're not going to know what the next steps are because things are going to change and evolve. So actually, it's that whole, you don't need to see the whole staircase, just see the next step. So sometimes getting started is the best way, and taking action is so much more powerful than thinking about it, and thinking about it feels more comfortable. So we kind of go, no, I'll just keep planning. I'm brilliant at planning. I'll plan some more. At some point you need to actually do something, right? But it depends. There is, you know, a lot of time there is a lot of fear around that. We've talked about fear of failure, fear of success, perfectionism. They're all kind of separate things, but they also all often coexist. And we brought up in a society where we're kind of taught you need to get things right. You know, you go to school and you want to get the top grades, and you go to work and you've got certain standards that are expected. And we don't want to be wrong. We want to be good boys, good girls. There's still that little inner child that wants to be accepted. We want to fit in. And so there is always that fear that if I don't fit in, I'm going to be excluded. And actually nowadays, that's just not true. Like, the world that we live in, that isn't the case. And actually being different and standing out is the best thing you can do, because then people kind of align to who you really are. So I think sometimes it's just giving yourself a little bit of compassion that actually it's normal. Like, we all get it. Even those of us that are very aware of it and have done loads of mindset work will still have those feelings and still have those times where we doubt ourselves and we fear things. Sometimes it is a case of actually getting some help and doing some kind of coaching or something to help you unpick what it is, because it's often something that's more deep rooted. And most of our beliefs and things are from when we're kids. So if something happened when we're a child that we may not even remember, then that can be something that we're still holding on to now as adults, and that stops us from doing things. I, for example, was your A-grade student. I was always, you know, a high achiever, and I got loads of praise, particularly from my dad for that. And if I look back through my childhood and even my early adult years, it was always when I'd achieved something that my dad was really proud of me, and he would talk about it, you know, tell his friends about it. And if I didn't have that, then how did I get his attention? So it took me a long time to figure this out. But when I did some coaching, I realized that that was one of the things I held on to. So I was always pushing myself to the next thing because I really felt like I needed that attention. And when I realized that and actually felt like, hang on a minute, what if I just don't feel like I need to achieve more? What does that look like? It took that pressure off. And now it's a bit more fun and a bit more playful. It doesn't mean that I always do everything I set out to do. It doesn't mean that I never feel like a fear of failure or anything else. But it's that awareness sometimes of, what is it that's driving me? Am I doing something I really want to do? And if so, then it might just be like Laura was saying, just take the action, get started and do a little bit and figure out, you know, what feels safe enough. Maybe you're not ready to launch a whole YouTube channel, but maybe you can just record a 1-minute video and share it with one person that you think might benefit. And then if you get some good feedback, maybe then that gives you the confidence to do something else, because a lot of people talk about confidence around these things, and we talk about confidence as if we don't have it or we have it, and that's just simply not true. We all have confidence, because if I ask you, do you feel confident that you could walk across to the other side of the room, most people are going to turn around and go, yeah, I can do that. Or could you go and make me a cup of tea? Are you confident you'd be able to do that? Most people would say yeah. But when you were a child, you couldn't always walk, and you couldn't always just go and make a cup of tea. That's not something you could always do. So you built your confidence by doing it. So it is, sometimes that action is a really key part to doing it, Laura. I think you touched on a gem there.
Yeah, I love that idea of being able to let yourself fail. Because in branding is stepping stones. You don't all of a sudden go out into the world and wham, that is my branding. You kind of, especially as an entrepreneur setting up, funds are an issue. So a lot of my clients can't afford to, go and get everything and pay for, the website that they dream of. And it's all build slowly. And build the branding out and let them play with it. And I'm saying some things will work, some things won't work. It's an ongoing creative process, but I don't think I allow myself to fail in my own business. I like that idea of bringing back the play in business and being an entrepreneur and playing and testing. It's definitely something I think that all as entrepreneurs need to do a lot more of, because it stops you being creative.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I think, in the sort of freelance community, when people are, starting to become freelancers and build a freelance business, it's that same thing. It's this, well, what if I get it wrong, or if I do it wrong? And I actually, it's what I love about being a freelancer, is that freedom of going, oh, I'm gonna give this a try. I'm gonna try a YouTube channel, or I'm gonna try some reels, or I'm gonna do a LinkedIn newsletter and see what sticks and what doesn't. And there's been things along the way that haven't. And I've gone, well, that was definitely a flop. I'm not going to do that one again. But it didn't affect anything. It didn't, the world didn't stop, and I didn't destroy my business over it. I learned from it, and I was like, okay, well, that doesn't work in this for me here, so I'm going to try something else. And it's that continual, like we say, action and taking that step and trial and error and seeing what works and what doesn't. And as you do, the more you do it, the more confident you get, and the more, happy you get, because you know what works and what doesn't work, especially when it comes to your own business and building your own brand.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's this, if you talk about failure, there's a brilliant clip of Will Smith on YouTube about actually searching for failure, and that we should be seeking out to fail. I think it's fail fast, fell forward, and fell often, or something. That might be paraphrasing, but basically the more we fail, the more we learn, the quicker we move forward. And so actually, if we're seeking out to find what works and what doesn't, the more we find what doesn't, the more we learn, the more we find what does work. And it's the same as, you'll hear salespeople saying, actually, you want to get lots of no's, because then you're going to get to a yes. And that's a very specific, like a salesy way of thinking about it. But actually, the more you try things, like you're saying, Laura, and go, well, actually, that's really not working for me. Well, that's great, because now you figured out something that doesn't work, but that might then lead you in a direction of something that does work. Or if you're putting yourself out there and you're being, authentic about who you are, and you're worried that people might not like you, well, that's great, because you're going to figure out the people that aren't for you, and then you're going to find the people that are. So actually, what's the bad side of it? There isn't really most of the time, but in our heads we go, oh no, like if I'm wrong, the world's going to end. It's probably,
and that's like full circle to what we started with about, people copying other people in the industry and trying to replicate someone else's business, because I don't know, the fear of putting themselves out there. But it, although I know people are hit and miss on the term being authentic, but if you are the real you and put the real you out there, you're going to attract like the clients that are for you, and the people that are for you, and you don't want the opposite of that. So
repelling is just as good, isn't it?
Yeah,
repelling someone
else's style is not gonna bring you what you want.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you can repel the wrong people and attract the right people, that's exactly what business should be about. But I think I like the idea of like it being a prototype number one. So this is like your prototype number one. It doesn't matter if it works or if it doesn't work. You've got prototype number two coming up. And I think in business, like my business has evolved greatly since I started it. Completely gone down different routes due to COVID and everything else. But I think a lot of people need to realize that, you can evolve. You don't have to go and copy the big person in your industry. You do not have to look the same. There'll be people out there that will attract to you as a person and attract to your style. So don't go and copy. It's just makes you look awful.
Yeah. And I think also the reason people maybe copy is because they fear that they don't know enough. They think, oh, I don't know enough. I've not been in the business for as long. So let me look at this person who's been doing it for 5 years and I'll just do what they're doing because they obviously know what they're doing. First of all, how do you know that they actually know what they're doing? It might not be as good as what you could create, but also you're doing this for a reason, right? So you must know something, even if it's just what you said earlier, Laura, of being just a couple of steps ahead. You don't have to know everything. You just need to know enough to help guide the person that's a couple of steps behind you in whatever it is you're doing. And so if you just focus on that and being where you're at, then you will attract, like you say, the right people to you. Because I think it is, a lot of the time, it is that limiting belief that, oh, I don't know enough, so I'm just going to copy what other people are doing. And like you say, that's not then, whatever word you want to use for it, authentic, being your true self, it's not going to build you and your business. It's just going to create a poor copy of someone else's business, which is never going to be as good because the original is always going to be the best.
Danie, sorry, can I just stop there? Danie, do you want to talk about your mentorship? Have you started it? Have you put it up yet?
No. I'm doing a free session next week and then I'm going to launch properly after that. Yeah.
No, I just think we should add that in because I don't know when anyone's going to put this up, but I just think because obviously this is what you're aiming for, isn't it? The clients.
Yeah, can do.
And then Laura, I think you need to talk about how to get the tone of voice right for clients and obviously the copy right for them.
Yes, I can do that.
Those are, I've got notes, girls. I have got notes on things that we can talk.
Like, you are going to do what you said you were going to do.
You are. You said that's what you wanted to talk about. No, I was just like, right, I need to make sure that they say what they need to help their business with, because I was like, no, we've got to get it so it's helps promote your business as well as helps anyone else out. So sorry, didn't mean to stop mid-conversation.
How do you bring that in?
How should we bring that in? Let's think. So what you were just talking about, how they need to be more authentic and be themselves. So
we could sort of go into, maybe you could ask like, well, just say, Laura, as a copywriter, how would you then people get into that tone? And then with Danie, it can be like, well, Danie, what would you say? And then that's your intro to.
So start us off.
Yeah. Okay. And then don't forget your bit as well if you want to add your bit.
I feel like the mom. Sorry.
No, it's good. We need someone to lead it.
No. So talking about being authentic, obviously with my brand clients, they are looking for kind of how their brand tone of voice is, how their wording is. Laura, have you got any tips around kind of being themselves, but obviously, needing to appeal to the right clients?
Yeah, I think from my point of view, when I'm, working with copywriting clients, it's firstly, we need to really establish their sort of tone of voice at their business, who they are, like their kind of personality, especially when it's a solopreneur or someone, someone that is the person behind the business, really understanding them as a person. The type of language they use. I mean, if you like we say about copying someone, if someone else is using very, I don't know, like an American style and you're, an English person and not necessarily would use the same phrases, like don't try and copy that, because it just won't translate so well. So it's really understanding the type of language you would use, and then really getting deep into your audience and who they are, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that you want to connect with and engage with. They're the people that you're gonna sell to, and if you're not using the right type of language and things that resonates with them, then they're never going to pick up on you, or they're never going to want to be in your circle. So it's finding that balance between your own personality and your business personality and what your audience are looking for and the terminology they are out there looking for. Because again, if you're completely off key and copying someone else's style and that really isn't resonated with your audience, then you're never gonna be able to sell and connect with them. So yeah,
the problem you've got is if they're used to you speaking a certain way on social media captions or whatever, and then they meet you in real life and you don't talk that way, they're going to notice a difference.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's a trust building exercise, isn't it? So you're building trust to everything you put into. So if you're coming across as fake or not who you are, or some like you are copying someone else, then you're going to lose that trust. And especially in this day and age, like trust is the key factor to getting business, to getting clients. So it's really important to be who you are, or who the business is and what that represents, and your values need to come across, not someone else's.
And I suppose with AI as well, that personality is more important than ever before, because AI is it's phenomenal, but it's soulless at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I accept a lot of people using AI now, and it does some really great stuff. But when it comes to, the language you're putting out, again, it still needs that personal touch. And some of them are getting a bit better at training to use your tone of voice and the language you use, but still don't just copy and paste out of the machine and think that's going to do the job for you. You still need to inject you into it for the same reasons, for the trust, so people know you're really who you are and get to know the real you, so they're more likely to buy from you.
But Danie, as a coach, obviously this mindset and being an entrepreneur and new to the business, like how would you let them approach this? How would you get somebody to kind of sit down and kind of deal with this kind of imposter syndrome? And what tips could you give that they would would work for them?
Yeah, so obviously a lot of us face the same kind of challenges, but actually within that we all have our own history, our own experiences, our own potentially baggage, for want of a better word. So sometimes it is just taking that time to actually unpick some of that and figure out what is it that's kind of driving all of this, because there's lots of stuff out there to deal with imposter syndrome, perfectionism, but a lot of time it's strategies to work around it. So it's like putting a plaster over it. You're not actually dealing with the issue. You're just trying to kind of cover it up and get through. And sometimes, like when you walk into the meeting and you've got the imposter syndrome in that moment, you need a strategy to just survive. So the breathing, the reminding yourself that it's okay to fail, all of those things are really useful. The other side of that is actually dealing with the situation itself. So we're treating it, and then we don't have to keep feeling the imposter syndrome or the fear of failure. So that's where, for me, coaching is really powerful, because even as a coach, knowing all this stuff, I can't always see what's going on in my own head because I'm in it. And sometimes we need someone else to help us just find that slightly different perspective, ask us a question that gives us a bit more insight so that we can actually get a deeper awareness. And then there's lots of different techniques and things we can do to help actually get rid of that stuff, so that you can start to think differently. You can start to believe different things. Beliefs are not something that are set in stone. We can change them, but often we've had our beliefs since we were children and they're just not actually relevant or helpful anymore. They were at the time. So that's what I do a lot with my clients, and I do work a lot one-to-one, but I've recently launched a new membership for people who specifically for female entrepreneurs and small business owners, because this is something that comes up a lot and we can't always figure it out on our own. So sometimes we just need, like I say, that little bit of extra help, a little bit of coaching, and also the support of knowing that you're not on your own. Like we've all shared today stories of experiencing these kind of things, and sometimes it's good to hear that someone else has had a similar experience, so you realize, oh, hang on a minute, it's not me, there's nothing wrong with me, this is kind of normal. But also that we can work around it and find ways of changing and improving it so that we don't have to live with it forever. So I've got a new membership called the Greenhouse. So we basically have calls similar to this, and we do some coaching exercises. People have the opportunity to share, get some feedback, and get a bit more awareness and insight so that they can start to change some of those things that might be getting in their way, and actually life gets a little bit easier to grow the business and, you know, put out the proposals that feel a bit scary and all of those things that can hold us back.
Yeah, knowing that you've got the tools in a toolbox, knowing that you've got the support and you know, somebody that you can literally just, you know, chat to quickly to support just before is, especially for any entrepreneur, that's gold, because, you know, it can be a lonely business as well. So knowing that there's someone out there and there's a membership that you can, you know, connect with other entrepreneurs is such a fantastic thing. That's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. It's so easy to get isolated and feel like you're in it on your own. And the more we do that, the more we kind of just focus in on our problems often. Whereas just having that conversation with someone else can now often help us to look a little bit wider and see that things are maybe not as bad as they seem, and find those different opportunities.
That's brilliant. Anything else, Laura?
No, nothing else to add on that. That was yeah, I think that was really, hopefully that's been really helpful to other people. Even I found it helpful just being part of it and hearing like Danie's advice and all of our experiences. I think, like Danie said, you're not alone out there feeling this way. So
I feel it's been really therapeutic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Danie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been good. It was a really interesting chat. I enjoyed it.
It was cool. I think we covered loads.
Yeah.